So hi everybody, my name is Stacy and I work at the Iowa City Public Library and I run our digital media lab, which features Adobe software like Photoshop and Illustrator. And I think I recognize a face or two from the digital media lab members here. And since it's not available while the library is closed during this pandemic, I thought I would share SketchBook, an app that has some of the same features that you'd find in those Adobe products, so that you can keep making art during the pandemic. So before we launch in, let's just talk a little bit. Have any of you used Autodesk SketchBook before? James is using it right now, so that's technically a yes. And another yes? Oh, that's a no? Okay. And then I wondered if anybody here normally uses Photoshop or Illustrator, if they're going to be looking for those same, some of the same tools. Okay, good. And then are there any other digital drawing apps or software that people enjoy and want to recommend to each other, or ones that you've tried and are just so-so? Has everybody at least drawn in Microsoft Paint at some point in their life? Yes. So you could have sort of a Microsoft Paint-like experience with Sketchbook, or you can go lots and lots of levels higher. Whatever you want to do is going to work on this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. So Autodesk Sketchbook. This is a drawing app that is raster-based like Photoshop, as opposed to vector-based. And if those are terms that you don't know, it just means that you can't, once you've made a picture in this app, you can't resize it bigger infinitely. It's like a photo with pixels. So you'll wanna start from the size that you want it to end up so that it doesn't get blurry and bad looking. This is intended for expressive drawing and concept sketching. And you can save one of your sketches, that's what a document is called, and then return to it like a saved document. And it'll keep your layers and it'll keep you as like a working file so that you can make changes later. And you can also export or save your work as a regular image file. So this is a free app, and anytime I looked for information about it online, people are just surprised still that it's free. It's been around for about 15 years, and it was originally commercial software before being a subscription-based software, and then it was made free for personal use in 2018. When you go to add it, if you do the app version, it looks like it's just free. If you go to their website, you'll see that they list it as an individual version for free, where you would have the 7-day trial before you'd have to get one of their Autodesk IDs. It's just a free login. I actually forgot that I had done that. And so they have never hassled me with emails or trying to get me to purchase anything. So that's no problem. And there are no ads or in-app purchases to ever worry about with this one. But if you look on their website, there's also an enterprise license that's $85 a year for multiple users. I don't know why you would ever need to do that, so make a point to not pay anything for this one. So as I said, this will work on your phone, tablet, desktop computer. You can find it in the Google Play or Apple App Stores, or go to their website for the desktop version. So tonight I'm going to demonstrate the mobile version on my phone, since that's how I normally use it. My phone, though, is very small, and I actually measured it. It's 2 inches across. So my drawing skills will look a little constrained, but hopefully you will be generous with me. The tools are a bit more spread out in the desktop version. So I thought I would show you a screenshot from somebody else who used that version, so that you can see the difference. And let me share my screen here. I did not draw this. This, you can see at the bottom, this came from someone's YouTube demonstration, Jason Shire. This gorgeous piece of artwork that he made in Autodesk SketchBook, sorry. And so the artwork aside, if you just sort of look here, there's a top bar in this desktop version. These little circles, they're called pucks, like a hockey puck. And so they control your paint color and opacity. And then there's some panels down the right where you can choose your colors, your brushes, see your layers, things like that. So I just wanted to show you this version because it's pretty different than how condensed it is on the mobile app. And I also wanted to show you that you can really make something impressive with this if you are interested and if you take your time. So before I start sharing my phone screen, are there any questions? You can feel free to interrupt me as we go along and ask questions. It is hard when I'm sharing for me to see if there are things written in the chat. So if you would err on the side of interrupting me, I would love that. Thank you. Okay, so let me switch to my phone. Oh, brother. Okay, can you see my phone here? Let me get this arranged so I can see as many of you as possible. Okay, so here we are on the blank canvas. Let's just start by doing an overview of what I can see here. So at the top left, there is this, it looks like sort of a menu. We'll come back to that. We don't need that right away. Although I'll go ahead and talk about it. So if I open up the menu, I'm in a new sketch already, but I can start a new one right now as well. And it gives me the choice of what size I want it to be. So this is not a huge image because it's assuming that I want something about the size of my phone screen, which is pretty small. So I usually just go with my screen resolution since for the most part, I'm not making anything that needs to be shared widely. I usually use this to play around and make like wallpaper backgrounds for my phone, or just do little meditative doodling, or draw something funny for my niece. And really, I've been using this with my 10-year-old niece who also draws on it, and she does some amazing stuff with layers and shading, and she's getting really good. So we've been sharing back and forth. So you can see you can get bigger, but I'm just going to leave it on my screen resolution. And I'm going to create my new sketch. I can discard it because that one was blank, and here I am. The next tool along the top looks sort of like drawing tools. These I'm going to come back to later, but if you wanted to start with a background image or something that you could trace on top of, this import image is where you would find that option. But for the most part, and for the longest time, I only used the options for my brush or pencil and my color. And you can get by and have a lot of fun with just those two settings. So I don't know how many people here are like very comfortable digital artists and how many people are just willing to try something new, but if either way, you'll use both of these tools. So here we are in the brush choices. There are so many, and they're grouped by type. And I read that you can also import new brush groups. I didn't really look into how that works, but you're welcome to explore that on your own. See halftones, this is sort of used in comics or manga. Texture.
Where is the halftone? Can you go back, Stacey?
Yeah, so I'm still just in the brush library.
It's in the brush library.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me
I want to know if there is the brush for calligraph.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So let me just start showing you some of these. So this is the pencil. And you can come back and you see how there's this settings at the top right. I can control the size of that pencil.
Yeah.
The opacity means whether it's see-through or not.
Yes.
And I can make some advanced choices as well. So the pressure, if you're drawing with a stylus, or if you've got like a drawing tablet, the pressure sensitivity might be something that you can use here. I'm not sure either. My fingertip is not sensitive enough, or or something, but I haven't really found that pressure makes a difference when I'm drawing on my little phone. But you might find that what you're set up with will make a difference for pressure. So that's the pencil. Let me just show you a few more. Vintage marker. So that would give you a calligraphy feeling, right?
Yeah.
Right. And let me show you my next tip. There's this little, it might be hard for you to see, a little circle down here.
Yes.
And this left arrow is how I undo. Let me show you a few more brushes. The airbrush, this might not look like much, but this is what I have the most fun with. I use it for blending and creating kind of intense effects, and you can, keep filling it in and in and in to build up an effect. There's other choices. The fountain pen would probably give you a calligraphy feel, maybe. Not as intense as the other one. There's a watercolor.
Oh, I like that. That's like a type of Chinese style of
Oh,
painting.
yeah.
They have that fainted look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, and there are a bunch that do smudging. So if you want to add little effects or make your lines less intense, you can do that. There are erasers that come in different textures depending on how you want the edge to go, and that one is humongous. But like I said, in the settings up here, you can change the size.
Oh, the smudging is, I missed the smudging one.
Oh yeah. So I'm gonna draw it on top of this one, okay? So I'm just smudging. It just sort of moves the color a little bit. You'll see more later. I'll show you more in a more exaggerated version. My other favorites, let me just show you. The color builder is the way that I like to fill in a background. It just fills up a lot of space all at once. And it also kind of has a nice gritty texture at the edges that I like. And then if we come down here, speckled is another favorite of mine. I'm going to change the color and I'll come back to how to do that in a minute. So this is just like paint splatters, right? And it just adds a little something that makes your art look a little more interesting or have more dimension, I think. And then there's one more that I wanted to show you. Okay, here we are. So the actual big splatters. I'm just going to tap once, tap again, tap again. And so it's sort of randomizing the size and the orientation of the same kind of shape for me. So if you felt like you needed more brushes than that, then you could look around online, but hopefully that will be more than enough. Let me just show you a couple more. So glow gives you a neon effect. And then a whole bunch of choices for different kinds of smudging, more artist brushes and things like that, pastels that'll have sort of grainy edges, and then finally some more colorless smudging ones. One more reminder, I'm going to go back to the settings. You can change the size and the flow as much as you need to there. I learned while preparing for this that there's another way to change the size, and that is to tap on this little circle down at the bottom, which is called the double puck. So do you remember on the desktop version, I pointed out that little teardrop shaped hockey puck thing that they have? This opens up a double hockey puck, right? So I'm going to refer to that as the double puck, and hopefully you'll remember what I mean. I learned from their website that if you tap and hold onto the top part of the puck and move your finger left and right, it changes the sizes on the fly for you of your brush. And if you tap and move left and right on the color puck, it makes it lighter and darker or changes the saturation. So that's an advanced tip that you don't have to worry about right now. The color wheel here is going to be the next thing I want to show you.
Yay!
Also, okay, so there are more ways to change your color than you probably need. If you are a beginner, basically you can drag this circle around and watch the rectangle on the right. This is the color it's changing to. And this is where I started with. So as I drag it around, it changes. And that's called the hue picker. Whereas if you move around the line in this square in the middle, then that changes the brightness and the saturation. So you can fine tune a color that you like just that way. But there are more options if you're interested. So one of them is this HSL. That stands for hue, saturation, luminosity. And so that's the same that I was doing with that, with that visual version. Sorry, my brain can't always, I can use the mouse on my computer, but my finger has to do the actual changing. So this is similar, but if your brain prefers to just see that little bit and control it this way, you might prefer this. RGB is red, green, blue, so you can control the kind of color you're getting that way. And then this little grid down here is a set of color swatches. And they come with this ready-made selection already built in. But you can set your own favorites in here. So let's say I really like this purplish pink that I have, and I want to replace this one because I know I'll never use this color. I can put my finger on and drag my color down into the spot and let go. And now that's part of my palette. And if I close out of the app and come back, that will still be there as my color. If you change your mind later, if you goof around a bunch and regret it, you can go back into the settings and reset all of the color swatches.
Yeah, the color that they created and created this palette to their own liking.
And then I've got a couple other things on here to show you. This one with this is like the shuffle symbol. If you were listening to music, I don't know if that looks familiar to you. This is crazy to me. So this will shuffle your colors each time your finger or whatever you're using, your mouse or your finger makes contact, it'll give you a different color for each stroke you make. And so you start by choosing, if you watch this blue line on the outside, I'm controlling what range it's going to pick from. I don't totally understand how this works. Let's say this is my range, and then I can control how light or dark it will be, something like that. And let me just clear all this out. Now, each time, let me see which brush I have. Let me pick a better brush for this demonstration. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so each time that I draw, it's automatically giving me a random new color. I don't know why you would use that. Can anyone think of an example when you would want to do that? I guess maybe if you were...
Seems to be a little off the gradient, so maybe a cheaper way to like make a gradient.
I see what you mean. When I practiced it earlier, it was not so, yeah, there's a big jump, right? So it went from that green to this tan to pink to purple. So it doesn't seem to be following a strict pattern. I think maybe if you were drawing a meadow of flowers and you wanted to throw in lots of little flowers, all ranging in colors, that could be a fun way to get some variety without having to change your color a million times.
Oh, maybe it's like the cheap paper, you know, like what you used to have, like pressured paper, and you'd get a relatively random
Yeah.
color.
So
Yeah.
you could have fun playing with that option.
Well,
And a final way or two to pick your colors. So there's a little eyedropper tool here. So let's say I was using the shuffle color, or I wanted to go back to a color I used earlier, but I don't know what it was. Or if I started with a picture or some other kind of reference and I wanted to pick out a color from it, I can use the eyedropper, and it gives me these crosshairs, and I can narrow in on the color that I want. And then it automatically sets my brush. Whoops. It should, except am I still in shuffle? Yes. So if I switch back to the color mode and get out of shuffle, then it sets my brush to that color. Let me clear this all again. A fast way to clear everything, I could use the undo, but I made about 100 brush strokes on here. So this way is very powerful. This erases everything on my layer, which is a topic I'm going to get to in just a minute. And it clears it all out for me. I've got one more color choice method for you before I move on. It's the Copic tab up here. So this is a brand of markers that's well known for illustrators, people who make comics. And so if you're already into this, or if you just like how controlled all of these labels for the colors are, you might enjoy, knowing which colors you like by this code. And you can switch. So like my choices for yellows are here. This is the illustration group. I can tap there and switch to design. I think design is the default, and I get different selections based on my purpose. For the blues, these are my design blues. Those are my illustration blues.
Wow.
Is that helpful for you?
I happen to be love blues. I didn't know I love it.
So another feature in here, once you choose one, they'll give you complementary selections. So if you remember back to sort of art class, complementary colors are on the opposite end of the color wheel. Is that true? I think it's something like that. And so if you put them next to each other, they bring out each other's qualities the strongest. So if you were going to draw something in this B00, and then you wanted some little accent, you could tap on this complementary color, and they should sort of look nice together. And it could save you a little time making color decisions.
So called Copic.
Yeah. So any questions about the brush choices and the color choices? You could spend your whole time with this app just in those two spots and make lots of interesting art.
I'm sort of curious, could you take a photo and set it as a brush?
Take a
with
photo
this?
as a brush. I love the way you're thinking, but I don't think that that's an option.
All right, I was just,
Are you imagining that it would sort of stay in one spot as the photo and you would reveal parts of it?
well, you could make sort of maybe some traditional marks, and then it will continue with it.
So yeah, let me see if this is what you're thinking of. This is a good segue to talk about layers, which is what I wanted to talk about next. So the next option over across the top here is 2 layers. That's where we get our layers. The very bottom option here is just for a background color. You don't ever have to use that, but you're welcome to. So you could set a single color to be the background. And then this is my next layer on top of that. If you haven't used layers before, I'll just do kind of a quick reminder. So layers in Photoshop or Illustrator are like sheets of clear plastic, and you can draw something on top of that plastic. And if you put another sheet of plastic on top, as long as it was blank, you would see everything you already had. But you could also cover it up and not be able to see what you first drew. And you could have an infinite number, probably not infinite, but lots and lots of layers and add lots of different effects. And you can always go back and you can take away a layer that you changed your mind about, or you can move an early layer up to the front if you want to change the way that everything is relating. Hopefully that helped. I should have prepared a faster way to describe that. But a great thing about this is that you can use layers. So it was, when I drew these squiggles, they were defaulting to the bottom layer, but I can press this little plus sign, add a new layer. And I can either view or not view it. So if I tap the little eye, I can no longer see those lines. They still exist and I could bring them back later, but you can control whether you see something or not. You also can double tap on a layer and you get lots of functions here. One that you will probably want is deleting it. You can duplicate one, things like that. You can control the opacity. So if I bring this down and close out, you'll see that my pastel lines got fainter. And if I come back, bring it all the way back, they're bright again. Oops. And then the blending. So this is going to seem familiar to people who've used Photoshop. So I can control whether my squiggly layer, oh, that didn't have, this will be easier if I had two real layers. Hang on a second. Let me draw something on this one. I'm going to come back. I'm going to use my color builder brush that I like. Yeah. And now, if I grab a hold of my pastel squiggles and put them on top, hopefully you can see that those squiggles darkened that solid orange space. Or I can make them multiply the color that they're on top of, things like that. So you can goof around a lot with all those different effects. It's color burn. Or if you want to get back to just the normal way of layers, you can switch it back to normal. Any questions about layers? Because if you're not familiar with them, you might have questions. Okay, so let me show what James, sorry, is it James?
Yes.
Let me show what I think maybe James was asking. And so this is going to demonstrate a few things. I'm going to delete these layers because I don't need them. I'm going to clear that one. I'm going to get rid of my background. So now I'm starting from scratch again. If I come up to the settings up at the upper left, the tools, beg your pardon. I'm going to import an image. And I have some that I saved. So let's say I like this picture of a field. And I can resize it just by the normal pinching and expanding. If you were on the desktop computer, you would drag the corners or whatever. The other options up here you can goof around with. You can distort it with this one that looks like a rectangle that's been pulled. You can flip it side to side or up and down, and then do this check mark when you're ready. So I'm going to come back to my layers, and I already had that other layer, so I'm going to move that on top, and I'm going to use my old color builder brush, although it is a little bit big right now, and sort of paint around here. That would be one way to get, like parts of an image. Or if I filled it in, sorry, let me fill it in totally. Oops. Then I could switch to one of my eraser options. Cashmere, textured, different erasers here. The one that I like is the square eraser because it's kind of grainy. I don't know why I like that so much. And I could erase parts of this. And so that could, does that feel like you're setting a photo to be the brush or not really?
Well, what I was hoping to get is, I guess what I was getting was a little bit more of a pricey option, but I was like, you can make your own brush, you can capture an image and
Okay.
then, but that's a very handy function, and I'm glad that there's a easy enough way to flip an image, because I get in a bad habit of looking at an image. And so I had 2 questions, about 3 questions. You've answered 2. So thank you.
All right. Well, even if this doesn't feel like a painting with a photo, you could still use that for lots of different functions, right?
Yes.
Did you want to ask your 3rd question now, or do you want to wait and see if it comes up naturally?
I'll wait.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, so let me see here. So I want to show you, I'm going to draw a butterfly, and then this is going to show you a few different things here. So let me just start from scratch again. So I'm going to come to my little settings. I'm going to make a new sketch. It's going to ask me if I want to discard this one. I'm not, because actually I think that's pretty beautiful. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to use that as a phone background at some point. It looks like a snowy field. I like that. But let's start from scratch. So I want to show you the mirror image feature, and that's under this tool option. And it's not called that, it's called symmetry, now that I'm seeing it. So this here, and let me switch my brush to something that is more conducive. Tattoo inker, make it bigger, make it an obvious color. So this, if I draw on, I'm drawing just on the left, and it's giving me the mirror image. And if I switch over, now my finger's on the right, it's mirroring my image. And we can talk about what you see in that little Rorschach test later, but I'm going to undo that and show you that you've got multiple options. So that's a vertical symmetry. I could do horizontal symmetry. I have them both right now, or I can take away the first one by tapping it again. This one has 6 radial. Is that 6? Yeah. And I think for my purposes, I'm just going to come back and I'm going to do the 4. I'm going to draw sort of a butterfly here. So my finger, I'm going to try to work just in the upper left quadrant so that you understand what I'm doing, but it's going to show up in all 4. And if I were to start all of my brush strokes from right here, I would be grabbing a hold of this center point and moving the position, which is interesting, and you might have fun with that. But instead, I'm going to try to start out here so I don't accidentally move that around. And I'm going to draw a wing, get it until it sort of looks like a butterfly. I'm going to come back to my brushes, choose some different ones, change my colors. So you're just going to watch me draw a little bit. If you have questions as I go, you can go ahead. I just want to demonstrate. I'm going to choose some different colors. Just sort of get some color down. And I can cross over if I want to make sure that middle is filled in. And so here's sort of this rough little butterfly, right? It doesn't look great, but that's what the magic of the airbrush is for, or the smudging, things like that. And so I'm gonna come over it with my airbrush a little bit. And right away, it looks pretty different, right? And if I do some smudging, I'll pick a nice color. You can see that it's sort of, actually I didn't hit the smudge, did I? I can bring it together so it's a little more cohesive. This does not look as good as the one I practiced earlier, but you know, what can you do? I'm just gonna give you a general sense here. Okay, so here's sort of my washed out butterfly. Now that I have sort of this base drawing down, I'm gonna stop doing the mirror image. I'm gonna unclick that. So now I'm just drawing again. And I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna draw like the body of a butterfly, right? Just to sort of establish that I'm doing a butterfly for real. And at this point, I'm gonna add another layer. And now that this top layer is selected, that's where everything is gonna go. I wanted to show you the splatter on top. So I'm gonna do some, I've gotta pick a better color than black though. So I undid that. Come to my color picker, pick a good color. I'm gonna do some splatters. That doesn't stand out very much, so let me pick a better color. I'm demoing the mistakes, kind of mistakes that you might make to show you that it's not a big deal. And now, oh my gosh, no, my splatters went on top of the butterfly's body, right? Is all hope lost? No, because I'm in that separate layer. So if I come back to my brush options and find an eraser, I can erase that purple out, right? So that I can, it doesn't look like I made a mistake. And then I also can come back and I can control what happens to this layer. So if I choose darken, that doesn't do much. If I choose multiply, I don't know how much you can tell the difference here.
I think darken is you're working from dark to light, so it's sort of a different mode. Like the lights are used for highlights, so it's one of the reasons to have a lot of layers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you can get different effects.
This one is very nice. Yes.
What's that?
I like this one.
Thank you. This is my drawing on my tiny phone abilities. And as always, anytime something's looking a little, I don't know, I like to put white speckles on top of it. And then I think it just looks really good. And so, so that's my butterfly. I can do one more. Let me just show you one more layer. And just imagine that I'm just gonna do some squiggles on top of this layer. You might think, oh my gosh, what? Let me just demonstrate how I can drag that layer around, put the butterfly on top of that. And since a lot of my butterfly was partially transparent, you can still see it behind there. Put that below, sorry. This doesn't want to let me get a hold of these. Put it below the splotches, put the splotches back on top, things like that. So you can really make a big difference in the way your art looks. And then if you change your mind about any part of that, if it was a separate layer, then it's easy to just cut it right out. Any questions about the butterfly example before I move on to just a couple others to show you? All right, well, I'm gonna save my butterfly because I'm like that.
Yeah.
And start a new one. But I'll also, just since I'm here, I'll show you my gallery and show you that the butterfly I made earlier looked a lot cooler. Like I did about the same things. I did more smudging. And I did more colors with the splatters, right? But this one looked cooler. Okay, let me come back to my new sketch. So I already showed you how to bring in a photo. I just wanted to do another little example like that. So I'm coming to my little tools. I'm going to import an image. And I have either like this watermelon that I grew. If I wanted to draw a watermelon's leaves and my little watermelon in my hand, but I knew that my drawing skills were just so, I could bring this in and I could trace over it and then delete the layer with the photo. So it looks like I just drew it. But since I already did that earlier, I'm gonna do this sticker from Halloween instead that I just thought was so cute that I had to take a picture of it, right? So this is a sticker from Michael's if I need to sort of give it credit. So I brought it in. First thing to do before you regret anything is to add a new layer, right? Because if you forget to, you know, then you can't make any changes and you're stuck with the photo in the background. But so I could get a little, let's see, let me get my regular kind of tool here, bring the size down, change it to black. And let me show you. So this is very small compared to my finger. I don't know if you can tell that my drawing would probably look pretty crude, but I can, just like with any other phone picture, you can, you know, spread out and bring your fingers in to zoom in and out. And I can start drawing my little guy here. And really, this was probably not the best brush to pick, but it's fine. So, oh my gosh, it's just so flippin' cute. And I should probably switch brushes, but I'll just show you roughly, you know, how you would do this. Okay, so I don't know if that will really capture how cute this chipmunk is, but so cute. All right, so as I try to resize back out, it took me a long time to learn that there is a way to snap it back to fill the screen again. And that is from my little option down here, my double puck. This rectangle in the upper right will refill my screen. And now we're ready to get rid of or just turn off the eyeball on the photo layer. And then I can start manipulating this, right? So if I come back to my tools, there is a fill or like a paint bucket option. And I can choose a solid color, a linear gradient, or a circular gradient. And to be honest, I couldn't figure out what this option does. So you're welcome to learn about that on your own. So if I wanted to fill in the wings to be like solid black, I can just tap them. And since I used a brush that was kind of grainy, my outline isn't perfect. So if you didn't like that effect, using like the pencil or the tattoo inker or something where you can tell it's a solid line would look cleaner. But I don't mind it looking a little weird. And then let me do a linear fill for the chipmunk's body. So I'm choosing that option and I'm going to tap in the space and it gives me these 3 color circles. And if I tap on the black one, it sort of highlights it. And I can come back to my color wheel and I don't really know what color they are realistically in a 3-color gradient, but I can make some guesses here. And that could be worse, that's all right. And I can grab a hold of them and move them around so that it fills in the way I want it to. Now it didn't fill in the little other parts of his body, right? Because I had closed up those spaces, but for the purposes right now, I can just sort of let them be imperfect. And that doesn't bother me. How do I fill that screen again? Tap on that one. And if I hit the little check mark, it takes away my gradient options and I'm seeing my artwork. I can also use the gradient to fill in the background. So if I like the radial fill and tap, I can choose my colors again. pick some wild colors. And I can bring it wherever I need it to go and change, you know, how intense that is, like you normally can for a gradient. And I always want to do this check mark. If I don't do the check mark, then it assumes that I changed my mind. Check mark. Okay. Sorry, it's tapping a lot. So this little option at the top right makes the top toolbar go away. Should have mentioned that. My little double puck down here, if I do the X, that makes that part go away. Let me talk just a little bit about some of these options in here. I wish I had not done that. So the one on the left, this lets me go back to the last brush I used. If I switch to one and then I thought, oh, that was a mistake, I can go back right to the last one I used. This switches to like an eraser or transparent mode. I haven't played with that very much, but you could try that out. This goes to my color picker eyedropper. So if you feel like it's faster to access it via the pucks, as opposed to coming up here and getting the eyedropper here, they give you different options. So you can sort of get your own workflow going that you prefer here. So that's my color picker. This goes to the previous color I used. So that's handy if you sort of made a mistake. And then this one will swap my canvas, flip it horizontally. And I just, hang on just one second. I just have to give his eyes a little, like, a little reflection so that he looks cute. Oh, hang on, that's way too big. So my trick is that I can drag that down. I can undo what I drew. I can bring it back to my regular size. So now he's a little cuter. So those are my main options from the bottom double pucks. And I think we covered most across the top, except that there are some more tools in here. So the selection thing, I found a little tricky on this small of a screen. I watched a couple of demos of people doing it on the desktop version, and of course they could use the lasso and the magic wand equivalent that you might be used to from Adobe software and use that to great effect. Go ahead and give that a try. Transform is handy if you've drawn some like geometric shapes. So let me just show you that quick. So I can draw a line, circle, or a square. Let me just draw a circle down here. Oh, and what am I telling myself right now? I should be doing this on a new layer, right? Let me come back. This is good training. Just make a new layer whenever you're about to play with something so that you can undo it if you change your mind. And I should have picked a better brush too. Let me just pick a very standard straight edged brush and draw this circle. And I did not pick a good one. Let me try one more time. Just do the technical pen. Okay, so I can come back to my tools. I can fill that in with solid color so that I have a shape. I can come back to transform, and it gives me some tips here that I can drag with a finger to move my circle. I can pivot it, etc. So I can move this around. This looks like a kind of a creepy moon. And I'm going to do the distortion. Maybe a white circle isn't the most interesting way to do this, but you see that I can make it look like I'm viewing it from the side. I can distort it around. And all is not lost. It seems a little freaked out for a second, but now it's fine. If I had filled that in with something more interesting, which I should have done from the start, if I filled it in with a gradient, the distortion would look more interesting. So let me just quick make this a little less ugly. Oops. Okay, I'll undo that. And let's do the transformation again. So I can distort it. You can kind of see that you really could get a very cool effect based on what you have there. And you can move this middle part to distort it into an entirely new shape. And you'll want to remember to do the check mark at the end so you don't lose what you did. Let's see. What else did I want to share about that? There's drawing guides. So if you wanted straight lines as a guide or a curved line, you can make some changes there. There are perspective guidelines. This seems very intense to me. I don't have a good example of people using this. Like, this doesn't make sense to me visually, but maybe someone who's a good artist does. But it is gonna sort of control where my brush strokes go. So let me make this a really crazy color. The directions here so that you kind of, I'm trying to draw circles, but it's giving me straight lines, right? So if you were trying to draw something that adhered to strict perspective, then this would help you out a lot. And then you can add text. And let me show you one more thing, the predictive strokes. So let me switch to another color that's obvious again. If I was trying to draw a circle, and I'm not that great at drawing circles. Oh, did I not do it? Predictive stroke. Let me show you. Oh, he doesn't like me right now. Let me try this with a different brush. Yeah, okay, did you see that? So I do my own kind of wobbly drawing and it snaps it into something a little more sinuous or a little bit nicer. And if I try to draw a rough circle, it's gonna smooth it out for me. So you might enjoy some of those features for your own drawing if you don't trust your finger to look as good as it could. And for me, I just draw with my finger and then I go back over it with the airbrush. Looks pretty nice. That's my technique. Let's see. Oh, I've got one more big thing I want to show you, and that is the time-lapse recording. So let's go to a new sketch. I'm saving it all. Hopefully I don't run out of space here. Time-lapse recording. So it's going to record everything that I draw, and then it will save it as like a little video to my phone. So I do this in the tool section, time-lapse. The second I tap here, it's starting recording. So I can switch back. I got my color builder. I'm gonna give myself a little sky. I'm just gonna do a sort of a classic young person's drawing here. Switch to some grassy green. Gonna give myself, I'm just gonna stick with this brush. Make a little tree. Switch to a different green. Right? Some classic kiddish drawing. I am going to do my airbrush because I like it so much. Right? So there's a lot you could do just drawing stuff. And let me just do some little flowers. Okay, and now when I come back and tap time-lapse again, I can save it to my photo library. It's condensed my 1 and 5 second drawing down to 5 seconds. And it captured it in 94 frames. So I'm gonna save it and then I'll show you what that is like in my photos.
Aha! You know, YouTube often have those people talk, you know, the advertisement.
Mhm. Yeah, so you could have a lot of fun with that. Do you remember, was it a feature of Facebook where you could doodle on a friend's Facebook thing and it was fun to sort of put a hidden message in there and then cover it up, and then when they watched it they saw like the hidden inside joke that you had or whatever, or something silly. So you could play around with this and have fun.
Yeah, give somebody a digital birthday card, a Valentine card. In fact, the coming up Valentine card,
Right.
you
And
put the
since you
roses are
can add,
blue.
yeah, so
Yeah.
since you can add text,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
it's just going to be
Okay.
sloppy for right now. You can control the font, the color, things like that. If it was Valentine's Day, you would want it to be like this. Obviously, that's enormous, so you can control it. Yeah, and then check mark to keep it. Yeah. So we're right about at the hour, and that was right about everything that I had to show you. So what kind of questions do you have? Is everybody gonna immediately try it and have fun drawing tonight?
Yeah. Especially the you showed us Jim had that question about import a picture of it. During you were drawing over that gave me some idea. And now with this time lapse, I think I have some things I want to try out.
Yeah. So I wanted to tell you that if anybody ends up drawing things and you just feel like you want to email me something that you made, I would just be so delighted to see something that you make with this. And I want to encourage people that you can either keep it simple with just the brush and the colors, or you can try all of those other features and even try to add in more brushes, or try to like watch some YouTube videos or something and see how people who are real illustrators are using all of these different techniques. Let's see, there's a chat from Linda. If you send it to a friend, do they have to have the same app? So the way, I guess I didn't show this for the, oh, let me start sharing again.
I think the Linda's question is very useful, would be the file format, the final file format.
Right. Yep, that was a good point. So I'm going to discard this one, because what that did was it saved it as a video onto my phone. So no, a friend would not need anything special. It would just seem like a regular video file. If I wanted to send this picture to someone and I wanted to show you, if I come back to the gallery, you'll see at the bottom here, you can see the size and that it has 2 layers. If I come back in, my layers are still there and I could still make fresh changes to this, but I can come up to the settings and I can share. This is like the way to save it as a picture. And, oh gosh, hang on. And I can save the image and it puts it straight into my photos. So no one would need anything special in order to see that picture either. Another thing that I sometimes do out of laziness, rather than going to settings and saving it, I'll just take a screenshot if I'm just sending something funny to my niece, and then that's a lot faster too. Did that answer the question, Linda?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Let's see, any final questions? I have a couple things to invite you to. So you're welcome to go if you need to, since it's right at 8 o'clock. But yeah, go ahead, James.
I was just wondering how if there's a way of like masking, or that you could set it in a way where you could have sort of a window, like divide a window for like comics.
Oh, that's a good question. Could you try to achieve that with layers? Or would you want to draw in separate sketches for each panel that you would combine in some other software? I don't think it has anything built in designed to help you have like a template that
Oh,
holds your edges clean, but you could either have layers and then erase things that got out of line, and then throw in, do you remember how there was like a geometric line or square that you could do? You could use that to clean up your divisions afterwards with just white lines, making everything tidy. But it's not super designed for that. I'm
all
sorry.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'd probably be stuck with either a limited panel, like 3 at best. Thank you, though. Thank you so much.
Yeah, those were great questions. Thank you for asking them. Who else has a question for me? And I see splatter makes everything better in theater paint land. Sure. I think it makes it look more dimensional and less like you drew it in Microsoft Paint. So I am very much for that. Yeah.
There are some pretty weird videos where they use Microsoft Paint, and it's really painstaking.
Oh,
the process, like you'll see like a bunch of windows, but it's just showing you that you can do something in Microsoft Paint, even though it's really
right. And so if you're willing to zoom in and draw little tiny things on this and zoom out and draw little tiny things, just like you would in Paint, you could achieve very interesting effects. But hopefully that big variety of brushes will do some of that work for you. Okay, well, I want to thank everybody for coming. Again, if you try it out, let me know what you think of it, because I'd be glad to hear. I am planning another drawing app demonstration on March 25th, so that's a little ways out. That one is called Fire Alpaca. Has anybody tried that? I had it recommended to me from a couple different people, and I opened it up for the first time today, and it did offer me a choice of whether I wanted to start with the comic book presets or something else. So James, you're welcome. You're welcome to look into Fire Alpaca before then, or join me in March after I've played around with it and see if maybe that has something that would help you. But I am like so excited to invite you all and anybody else that you know to this thing that I have planned February 25th, which is group drawing prompts. When I was a kid, my #1 thing that I ever said to my mom was, "What should I draw?" And it was constant. And she eventually just started saying elephant every time. So I can sort of draw an elephant. But that's why I'm excited to do this with you. So I have a book called 642 Awesome Things to Draw. You might have seen some others in that series. And they have prompts like, the one I remember is to draw a school bus full of fish. So I invite you all to join me. We'll do sort of one prompt after another for a set time. You do not have to be a great artist to have fun drawing like that with me. No one's going to force you to show what you drew, but you'll be welcome to if you were happy with it. And it should just be a good time. And one person who comes will win a copy of that book to keep. So if you like to draw, you could draw with SketchBook during that event on your phone or your device, or you can draw with paper or markers or whatever you have. It should just be a fun time. So you can sign up on the library's calendar. That's on February 25th.